So full disclosure, I'm recording this for Carrie.
All right, guys, I'm going to try and get this started. I know his intent is to make this as interactive as possible. But, one thing that's come up repeatedly since we started talking about transitioning over time from just standard farming practices into sustainability and hopefully eventually into organics has been the specifics of what that all entails. Because, as we've learned from the food world and everything else in the last 20 years, the term organic can mean a very different thing in print than what it means in our hearts and in our heads. So Ivan has spent some time preparing here and is going to kind of share what our current practices are, what the options of different methodologies are, and ultimately in what direction that we're heading for both Onyx Estate here and Kyler Canyon Vineyard. But I think the best way to do these, as any questions come up, whether you just want to put up your hands or ask them directly, however you prefer to go, of course. But good to have a back and forth, and my hope is moving forward from this, it won't just be informational, but it will actually give you guys some of the tools when conversations come up elsewhere, whether with customers or other industry members, to sort of discuss our own path.
Alrighty, well, good morning. Just to give myself a quick introduction for you guys who don't know me, my name's Ivan Gonzalez, Junior Manager with VPS. We assist with the management of the vineyard here at Onyx, both here Onyx and Kyler Canyon Vineyards. My background, just kind of grew up in the area, originally up from Napa, so I was kind of second generation viticulture, kind of by trade. Been up and down all of California, working down south as far as Santa Barbara County, done Paso Robles, up Napa, Sonoma.
When he says second generation, his dad, Alfredo, is also around the vineyard quite often, so
correct.
You may see him.
Yeah, so I've just been kind of working up and down the states, had small stints at other places, Oregon, a little bit of time in Spain, but just kind of seeing the different practices and methods. One thing I've learned kind of throughout just exploring and being about is that there's more than one way to skin the cat. And a lot of the times, a lot of the practices, just because our neighbor does it one way doesn't mean it's incorrect. More than anything, if it works out for their business, what they're trying to push for, then it's totally fair game. So we'll start off with that. I want to have a conversation more than anything with you guys. I don't want to make this like super jarring and too informational, where it just becomes jargon and it just makes no sense. So, like Jess said, if at any moment you guys have any questions, just feel free and ask. We can kind of discuss that. A lot of the practices that we already implement out in the vineyards are sustainable themselves. It's just not us. It's a lot of the industry that already implementing these sustainable practices. The biggest difference is that we going through a certification process, and what that means is we obviously file the vineyard, and then we do kind of a self-audit, self-assessment, and then we follow up with reporting, and that kind of gets us through the certification process. And then reality is kind of what will determine whether your vineyard is sustainable, organic,
Is the
biodynamic.
self-audit process, is it primarily just focused on applications and inputs, or is it also asking, number of passes you make and what type of passes, mowing, tilling, whatever you do?
Yeah, so depending on the certification that we're getting, so we're under the California Association of Wine Grape Growers, and the certification process is the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance. There's also the SIP program that exists, it's statewide, so no matter where you're at, you can apply for each one of these. I know we've applied for the CSWA here, Kyler. We've also done it at some of our vineyards up in the Monterey County, so it doesn't just restrain to just one area, but as far as each one has a different guideline, so there is a kind of a workbook to work from, and since we're going through, we have some vineyards that are SIP certified, we have some other vineyards that are under the CSWA certification. It's based on that workbook, so it'll let us know kind of
Anytime.
for CSWA, it gives us kind of a scorecard, and it's a 1 to 4, 1 to 5, one being we're not being too sustainable about it, and then four on the
Without
opposite
me.
side, we are sustainable activity in that option as far as it goes. So it could be, as far as vineyard passes that we're doing, that we'll talk about that. They'll have some implications as far as air quality, soil compaction, some stuff that can be detrimental to the vineyard. But yeah, that's kind of how we work as far as
What's our sustainability rate?
we are. How does this CSW does a I'm trying to remember, it's like SIP has a different grading scorecard, but we need to fall, I think, at least 85% minimum for us to qualify, so we are at least at that. And one of the things we're going to be talking to today is some of the implementations that we're doing out in the vineyard to kind of continually improve on that score. So like I said, our farming has been sustainable, I think, up until this point. Now there's still additional inputs and additional structures that we can put up to continually increase that score, but that's how this sustainability program works as far as the CSW goes.
I think having spoken to people before we started into the CSW, one thing I liked about it was they're not super militant up front in that it's not just this impossible feeling set of guidelines you have to meet, but they're really focused on continuing education with their members and teaching everyone how to be a little bit better each year. And you always take the improvements you make each year, continue to go with them, and they help you find other things that you can implement on whatever your business's budget is. And I think they take a very sustainable, bad pun, but mental approach to how to drive things forward and help all farmers get better.
Do the standards change pretty frequently?
I've been working with the same workbook for the last 5 years, and it's about kind of the same. I think they've added a few things here and there, but not a whole lot where it would change your program drastically. We are required to improve at least on 3 of those items. Of course, that doesn't limit us. I mean, we can continually be improving on other items, but as far as I know, year to year, one thing they are asking is for us to improve at least on 3 different items that are kind of listed, and it's a long self-assessment. I've done it while I've been driving. My assistant called me and she was reading off the questions as we were kind of marking off where we were at. So it is. I think I've spent about 8 hours just doing the self-assessment itself. It's a lot of questions, and it's good information because at the same time you're like, oh, where do I stand, or why am I not doing that? Throughout the year, because the season picks up and we're just quickly doing stuff, trying to stay ahead of it. But at least that way I can write down a note and be like, all right, these 3 things I'm going to work on. One of the things here at Briarwood that we're kind of working on is soil health. We're moving away from using harsher chemicals. As you guys can kind of see, these vineyards blocks that we're kind of at down here have been treated with an herbicide, and it's a chemical form of controlling weed, which tends to be just a competitor of vine health throughout the year. It uses up a lot of the resources, nutrients, water that we're using for farming. There's certain parts of this vineyard, due to just some structures that are out there, mostly rocks, I would say, that makes it kind of a little bit difficult for us to do a lot of the undervine implementation that we are planning on doing, and that's going to slowly move us in towards a organic kind of farming practices. But as you guys drive out and you guys look over there on phase 2, everything that's kind of on the west side of that main road, when you guys come in, you guys will see we ran a berm builder, just kind of a way of tossing some soil on top of already existing grass to kind of kill it. There's going to be new growth that comes out, and then we're going to be running an